Okay, welcome to the show, Ariane Cap. You are an electric bassist, educator, author, and blogger. Your credits include working with Keith Olsen, Muriel Anderson, the Montclair Women's Big Band, Generation Esmeralda, and Cirque du Soleil, to name just a few. You've teamed up with the star jazz bassoonist Paul Hanson to create critically acclaimed duo, hope I'm pronouncing this right, OoN. OoN. Among others, there's lots more to talk with you about what you're up to, Ariane. So thank you so much for joining us, and please do tell us more.
Thank you very much for having me. Happy New Year from Nashville to everybody.
And
yeah, excited to be here.
Give us some insight on your career.
Well, music and education would be the two biggest things for me. I absolutely love playing music for people, and I love sharing the ability to do that with others. Self-expression is something that is innate to us, and give us an instrument, a couple of skills. That's important, because if we just give them the instrument, people get, flustered and confused. Yeah. But give them a few skills in a certain way, and there is wonderful potential to tap into. So I wrote my first book. It was published in 2015, and that unexpectedly, it has a very unsexy title, Music Theory for the Bass Player. How much more niche can it get, right? But very unexpectedly, it became extremely popular very, very quickly. And so I saw that there's demand for my kind of teaching, which is I want to marry intuition with skill. So there's technical skill you need, there's theory skills you need, there's reading, there's, understanding how the fretboard is built and so forth. But I want to put that plug into that improvisation from day one, if you will. And this first book that I wrote is sort of an encyclopedia of music theory as it shows up on the bass fretboard. So it's very specific to the bass player. It's very visual. It's very applicable, and people can do it and follow along. Even if they don't have any skill prior to that. And so I got interested that this teaching approach was just very appreciated. And I started building a course on top of that, building an online community on top of that. And now it's really taken off. I wrote a second book since then. I have 4 more in the pipeline, more or less, maybe even more. So we'll see. And more courses, more community. And we've built a really loyal following. And it's been an amazing ride, because to share that with other people and to see people grow. We've had people on our platform for many years now. And to just see how they were, before and after has just been incredible. It's been a real gift. So it's been an amazing ride. So the education arm has been very strong in my life lately, and I like it that way.
Yeah. And how about
when I came to Nashville, I picked up a gig recording for a TV show. Other than that, mostly active with my own projects at the moment. So there's always something I got cooking with my partner, Wolf. I'm still new in the scene. So I'm looking for, meeting more people here. I haven't checked out the Nashville scene enough, but I will. I know there's a lot going on, and people always think it's just country, but it's jazz and all sorts of different styles of music. And so I'm really looking forward to diving into it. Just been so busy. So I got to make time for that.
Tom, you got a question?
Yeah, well, I have. Yeah, there's lots of questions I can ask you. A little bit more about your teaching, perhaps, but also, which do you prefer, teaching or performing, or is that a very hard question to answer?
I would have to say, if I had to decide between one or the other, it would just tear me in two, because I love both so much. Seriously, it's just, I love teaching. I've been teaching longer than I've been playing bass.
Okay,
so
all right. Wow.
It's, even when I was and not music, I was helping kids at school, even when I was in middle school, and gotcha. I always just enjoyed that. My dad was a university professor and a very charismatic teacher, and I always I remember seeing him in the lecture halls, and it's just almost like a theatrical performance. It's funny to think of it this way, because I think there is a performance element to teaching. There really is, because you want to draw people in, you want to lead their consciousness from one story element to another. So there is like a journey you take them on that is not so dissimilar than when you perform a song. And so I've always admired that ability to My dad was teaching physics. You know, how much more dry can it get?
Oh boy.
But to make it exciting and to make it tangible and to draw you in and make you really interested in it. So I was always curious about that. And I was always curious about how do people tick, you know, how if somebody doesn't understand it, I always take it on me that I'm just didn't explain it right. So I got to try a different angle and try a different angle. And so I've collected over the years of teaching many private lessons online or in person. I used to have a music school at one point. So I've collected a lot of angles, right? So my shelf is full of angles. So, okay, if this doesn't work, you can try this, you can try that. Oh, that person really likes to read something. They're visual. Okay, this person really likes to hear it. So do it with the auditory. There's so many ways how you can do it. And I was just always really fascinated with this process, with figuring it out, and then to seeing the results. So I'm loving it.
You know, this is Music for Global Change. Your feelings about social conscious music.
Music ideally is socially conscious just by being music, you know. It connects, it inspires, it is daring, sometimes trying new things. What I love about music is you can take any music from any culture and communicate through the language of music with any culture anywhere else. So because of that, we have all these amazing combinations of styles and this amazing opportunity to, you know, bring an element of a certain style of music and combine it with Western harmony or combine a certain types of rhythm with, you know, a traditional instrument. I mean, this is just this amazing non-verbal, you know, nothing needs to be said. We just, you know, put things together in different ways. And just by doing that, you respect what the other is doing. And it's a good thing for everybody. It's healing.
Do you write social conscious music?
I write mostly instrumental music. So I don't know if, you know, if the social conscious element is mostly linked to lyrics. To me, any song is a story, you know, any song, or whether it has lyrics or not, is a story. And it is something that is hopefully touching something as part of a human experience. And I would say that's a global, universal experience that connects us.
Do you write lyrical content?
I did many years ago, a little bit of it, but nothing lately. You know, what I like to do is when I have friends who have a birthday or something, I'll write a song about them. And then, you know, that's more like a little gift for them. But
would you like to learn?
Well, it's not been something that's been on my radar in that sense. How do you teach it? How do you approach it, Skyler?
No, I teach it. I write about all kind of issues, but now mostly positive social conscious music, right?
And I think that is so important, especially after the pandemic.
Who would have been some of your social conscious music heroes? Marvin Gaye or?
Sure, yeah.
Bob Marley or Nina Simone, and there's, you know.
Oh my, all of the ones you mentioned, you know, are musicians that are very dear to my heart that I love.
Yeah, John Lennon, right?
Yeah,
you know,
definitely. It's just music I love that speaks to me, and, you know.
You know, that's what we need more of now. So it's kind of like what you were saying, like, you know, we need to snap out of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's about writing something positive and stuff like that. Tom, did you
yeah, I've got some more questions. What I would like to ask you about is I love your website, arianecap.com, and also the aribassblog.com that you do, which is, I believe, where you do your sort of teaching, where you put your courses on. Really well put together websites that you've got there, and also a little bit more about your collaboration with Paul Hanson.
Well, that project is a little bit on hold right now, but because, you know, I moved down here and he's extremely busy touring the world right now with all sorts of projects. So it's been just hard to get together. But we had, theoretically speaking, we had a whole album in the can that we haven't finished yet.
Okay. So that's due to come out. You're going to release that. Is that going to be something you're going to get done?
We'll see. I don't want to speak out of turn without having checked in with him for a minute. We have kind of lost touch. So we'll see where that takes us. But we have recorded all the tracks. And I'd
look
love
forward to that.
Take it there. Because bass and bassoon, you know, It's such a such an interesting.
It's a really good combo. I was thinking, wow, what a great combination just to say, because you don't see, it's not a duo you would ever normally see. You'd see, you'd see a lead guitar with a bass or whatever, but you wouldn't see a bassoon mixed in there. So it's And
really... I mean, Paul is such a monster musician. He's such a monster. He has so many skills on all these different styles, and he uses the bassoon, which obviously is a classical instrument. He sounds like Jimi Hendrix one moment, and then he sounds like a classical piece the second moment. And because it has such a huge range, he can play a bass line, and I can lay some. I play 6-string in that project, so I have a couple of higher notes. So, and he can lay down a bass line for me, and I can play a melody up on top, or he can use electronics and use his pedals and create harmonies out of one note, and so he can take all sorts of roles, not just melody but harmony, and then he kicks in distortion, and I mean he does all this amazing stuff that he does.
Wow.
And then I just essentially try to keep up somehow, but I can do chords, that seriously it's just unbelievably cool what he does, but I can do chords, and I can do bass lines, and I can do melodies, and so we can kind of, in a very untraditional way, weave a song out of these ingredients. So that's been always marvelous.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. Brilliant.
Are you working on your own record?
Yeah, actually, what I'm interested in right now and been sort of tinkering with for a while is multi-bass tracking. So I love things like when I, use a delay pedal, for example, and give it a certain rhythm. And then I start a second rhythm that has maybe the same beat, but I won't take the same subdivision. So you'll get some sort of like a, 3 against 4, or 2 against 5, or 7 against 3, or something crazy. Wow. And you lay those on top of each other, and you do that over and over and over with layer after layer. You get this kind of almost meditative sounding, it's almost like a sound wave that comes and goes because it's very complex. You try to follow one rhythm and you kind of get lost in it, but then the other one takes over, and so it's kind of floaty. And I love the idea of that. And bass is a wonderful instrument that you can do that with, because I can lay down a low bass line and then again use my 6-string and maybe an octave pedal and use effects and take it to different realms. So those are some things I've been experimenting with lately.
Fantastic.
I love double tracking for vocals, right?
Oh man!
And now, do you know this brother named Yossi Fine, ferocious bass player?
Oh, bass player, okay.
Yeah, he's a bass player. He's amazing. We were writing a tune together. I told him I need to write something that would, get the kids to put the guns down.
Yeah.
It's easy to pick them up, and so he says, "Well, what do you want to write?" I said, "Something, like unusual and different." He said, "Man, I go to Africa a lot. And whenever I see an unusual instrument, I go over and record it."
Mm-hmm.
Then he comes back, he puts beats on it. He creates
nice. Yeah.
And then he goes and does concerts. I say, "Well, you doing with band?" He says, "Sometimes, I got a band, but, I got tired of them dudes not showing up, or 2 days before the gig, they say, 'Hey, man, I got somebody to go pay me more money, man. I can't do your gig.'" And
oh God.
So he said, I just started doing it by myself. And he played in front of thousands of people by himself.
Right. That's awesome.
By going to get different beats, he lands those on stuff that he's doing. And he's multi-tracking like you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
then if you can do that, if you can pull that off live on stage with pedals and stuff, that is super fun. It's challenging though. Yeah, no, that's great.
Tom, you got another question?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to ask you a little bit about, I think you've probably touched on it slightly earlier, what prompted you to go down the educator route? And in that sense, you mentioned that you were educating with regard to the bass and the music before you even really started playing. Was that purely down to sort of your father's sort of teaching influence, would you say? Or
well, just the act of teaching to me is it's like a calling a little bit, I think. So it's a important duty, and if you feel like you have something to share and you enjoy doing it, then I paid attention to that impulse in me, in my life I took all sorts of detours. I was a scientist for a minute, my master's of science and all that stuff.
Right.
But I always loved music, and what drew me to music, I tried to pay attention to that too. It's just like it helped me find an identity or learn things about myself that I could otherwise not see. I didn't know I had a certain way to play a groove, or a certain melody that I would come up with would be kind of me, right? It would teach me something about me that didn't feel that it needed to be explained or like justified or whatever. And there was a certain amount of freedom in that. And I tried to see that in my students as well. I could see their excitement when they would come up with a first own groove, or I would feel their satisfaction if they had like this bass, that hero, and they wanted to play that bass line and they could, and it just meant so much to them beyond just being able to perform something, off a sheet of paper. And so I think there's something very, you could call it spiritual, you could go down various rabbit holes here to sort of try to uncover that. But I think it has something to do with your identity, but at the same time with something that is bigger than just you, right? So it takes me into myself, but it also takes me beyond myself because I'm doing it with others. I'm hooking up to somebody else's rhythm and ideas, and I'm listening and I'm reacting. So it's about me, but it's about us. And I just felt this extremely interesting. What's happening in the mind? What's happening in the fingers? How can I connect the fingers to the mind, to this, the expression, that it makes somebody really react to it, whether it being just the correct notes and not touching somebody, right? And so it's almost like therapy sometimes in sessions, I find, and I'm just extremely interested in it. I keep trying to learn as much about it as I can from my students, from books, from, all sorts of sources that I can find from other performers. And, it's nothing is more exciting to me than picking a mind of a person. How did you know to play that note right at that moment? So there's a magical space there that I'm after, I'm
I think the really cool thing though is like you enjoy seeing your students excel.
Oh man, I love that.
And you're watching them and they go, wow, I learned that from Ariane.
Well, I mean, they do the work, I'm happy to be a guide on their side, and I try to make it as easy and fast for them as possible, because we want fast results, right? And we sometimes have older students, so they feel like they're running out of life. They want to get
it done. Tick that box.
And honestly, this is not even a bad thing to have. Because I have some of my younger students, they're kind of like, I can learn technique later. I can do all this stuff. Like, give me the fun stuff, But the older folks, they're often like, man, I'm running out of life and I want to get really good. I want to explore how good I can be. The me version, that's so unique, because even if I'm not like a super pro and standing on the big stages, there are certain things that only I can do, And I believe that even with a complete beginner, and I want you to find that, and I want to help you find that. And
that's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. Tom, you got another question before we go?
How best do people get in touch with you? I've mentioned your website regards to the teaching that you do. Is there any other good ways to get in touch with you? How do people get in contact?
Yeah, my website is arisbassblog.com. So ARIS, the word bass, BASS, and then the word blog. arisbassblog.com. There's a contact tab there. That's a good source. Or my artist website at arianecap.com. That's ARIANE. C as in Charlie, A P as in Paul.com. And Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. So.
Are you restricted to teaching? How do you do it online, or how does that work for you? Is it something you could do over Zoom, or how do you actually do the teaching?
I used to do a lot of one-on-ones, but mostly these days we do courses and community teaching. So I recently created a community where we people become a member, and then they can join as many live sessions as they'd like. So I do several live sessions a week of different levels. We have ear training Mondays. We have, theory Thursdays. We have just a variety of different topics, and people can join. And I love that, because I see just had one yesterday with like these 30 little tiles of Zoom people. I got really good by now reading what people are doing. I give them an assignment, and then I'm watching. It's like, Tom, move up your one finger out. Get the wrong finger in there.
You're doing it wrong.
I can make little corrections like that.
Amazing.
And it's super fun. Yeah.
Brilliant. Fun. Fantastic. Yeah.
Well, listen, Ariane, thank you so much for the privilege of your time.
No, you bet. Thank you for
Thank
having
you
me, Skyler.
so
It's
much
just
for
nice
joining
to
us.
connect.
Much
Yeah.
love to you, sister. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Great to see you.
Thanks.
Take care.
Take care of yourself.
Music can save the world. Music can save the world. If we all get together, music can save the world. Yeah. Music can save the world. Music can save the world. If we all come together, music can save the world. There's an urgency facing our humanity.
Thank you so much for watching. To stay up to date, please click subscribe and hit the bell. You can also join our group on Facebook and find us on LinkedIn and Instagram.